We're gonna be the most beautiful girls in this kingdom.
They didn't listen. They just kept cutting. They thought it was just hair. They thought nothing would happen. But they were wrong. Very wrong. Because that girl, she did not belong to this world. And the moment they touched her, something in that river woke up. Something angry. And now, their whole village is about to pay for it. Many years ago, in a quiet kingdom surrounded by forest and river, there was one night every young woman waited for. The night of the royal dance. It was not just a celebration. It was an opportunity because on that night, the prince would choose a bride. And once chosen, a girl's life would change forever. In that kingdom, beauty was not just admired, it was power. The more beautiful you were, the more you were seen, the more you were desired, the more doors opened for you. And as the festival got closer, things began to change. Girls spent hours in front of mirrors. Voices became softer. Smiles became more intentional. Everyone wanted to be noticed. But among them, there were 3 girls who wanted more than just attention. Sandra, Abigail, and Susan. They wanted to be chosen. They grew up together, dreamed together, and made a promise that one day, one of them would rise above the rest. But as the festival got closer, reality started to show itself. No matter how hard they tried, there was always someone more beautiful. Someone people looked at twice. Someone who stood out more. And slowly, that thought began to eat at them. Because in that kingdom, if you went first, you were nothing. That was when they heard the story. Not from the elders, not from the priests, but from whispers. The kind people only say when they're sure no one is listening. They said, long ago, the mermaids made an agreement with the people. One day, just one day, where they could come out of the water and no human would be there. Because before that, humans hunted them, cut their hair, used it for charms. They believed if you had mermaid hair, you could control anything. But after the agreement, the attacks stopped and the village prospered. Most people heard that story and just stayed away. But the 3 girls did not hear a warning. They heard a solution to their problem. And that was the beginning of their mistake. They began making plans on how to execute their evil mission. Finally, that night came quietly. The village slept earlier than usual. Doors closed, voices faded, even the wind seemed to disappear. It was the kind of silence that made every small sound feel louder than it should. One by one, without a word to anyone, the 3 girls sneaked out of their homes. No lanterns, no footsteps meant to be heard, only the sound of their breathing and the distant whisper of the river. They did not walk together at first. Each one moved carefully, as if afraid someone might call their name and stop them. But when they reached the narrow path that led to the water, they found each other. They didn't smile or greet each other, just a silent nod of understanding. They had all made the same decision, and now there was no turning back. The path grew darker as they walked. Trees closed in around them. Branches stretched across the sky, blocking out the moon. And with every step, the air around them changed. It became heavier and colder, as though the forest itself knew they were not meant to be there. One of them slowed down. Maybe we should go back. Her voice was low and uncertain. But no one answered her, because ahead of them, the sound of the river had grown louder and closer, like it was calling on them. When they finally stepped out of the trees, they stopped. For before them, the river lay still. Too still. No ripples, no movement. It looked like something was watching them. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Then slowly, their eyes began to adjust, and that was when they saw her. At the edge of the water, where the sand met the river, she was lying there, her body half turned toward the shore, as though she had only just come out of the water to rest. Her skin caught the moonlight, soft and unreal. But it was not her face that held them. It was her hair. It stretched across the sand far beyond where her body lay, dark, smooth, and endless. It did not move with the wind. It did not tangle. It was simply perfect. The three girls stood frozen, because in that moment, everything they had heard suddenly felt real. One of them took a step back. We shouldn't be here. But the others didn't move. Their eyes had already chosen. They were no longer looking at her as a being. They were looking at what she had and what it could make them. Slowly, carefully, they began to move closer. The sand shifted beneath their feet, and at that sound, the mermaid stirred. Her fingers moved first, then her shoulders, then her eyes opened. She looked at them, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as something she had already seen before. Her voice came out soft, barely above a whisper. "Please, don't." The girls froze. "Don't touch my hair." The words settled between them, heavy. One of the girls looked away. "We should leave." But another stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the mermaid's hair, unmoving. "Do you see it?" she whispered. The third girl swallowed. "Imagine what this would make us." The hesitation broke as desire stepped in, and in that moment, the warning lost its power. One of them reached out, another grabbed her arm, and the third moved behind her. The mermaid tried to sit up, but she was weak, too weak. "No, please stop!" the mermaid screamed, struggling against their grip. "Hold her tighter," one of the girls snapped, pulling her hair harder. "She's too strong. Then don't let her move." The mermaid twisted, her fingers digging into the sand. "If you cut my hair, you will die." "Shut up," the second girl barked, raising the scissors again. Another thick strand fell to the ground. It was dark, heavy, and unnatural. "Look at this," one of the girls whispered, almost breathless. "It's glowing. Keep cutting." The mermaid gasped, her voice breaking. "Please, you don't understand." "Oh, we understand perfectly," the third girl said coldly. "After tonight, the prince will notice us." Strands of her long hair scattered across the sand like silk. That's enough, one of them laughed nervously. The mermaid suddenly went still. Too still. Her breathing slowed. Her eyes changed. When she spoke again, her voice was no longer weak. "You will regret what you have done." The girls froze, just for a moment. "Did you hear that? She's bluffing. Finish it." The last cut fell as silence took over. Then the third girl shoved her, hard. Her body slipped beneath the surface of the water, and for a second, nothing happened. The girls stood there, breathing hard, still clutching the hair in their hands. Then, suddenly, the river moved violently. The water twisted into itself as if something beneath it had just awakened. The sky went completely dark. The wind returned all at once, ripping through the trees, turning the quiet night into chaos. "Did you see that?" Before anyone could finish, the river exploded. Water surged upward in massive waves, crashing against the shore, roaring like something alive. The ground beneath their feet trembled. One of the girls screamed, "Run!" That was all it took. They turned, stumbling over themselves, gripping the stolen hair as they fled into the darkness. Branches tore at their skin, feet slipping against the earth, hearts pounding louder than the storm behind them. But even as they ran, they heard it. The water, rising, following them. Then, suddenly, a voice, deep and powerful, cut through the air. They turned, just for a second, and what they saw was not meant for them. The river had parted, and from its depths she rose, a queen, tall, radiant, and terrifying. The water bent around her, obeying her presence. In her arms was the mermaid, her daughter, whose hair they just cut. She was weak and silent. The queen's eyes lifted and found them. Even from a distance, they felt the anger in her eyes. Her voice roared across the storm. "They will pay." She held her daughter closer. "For what they have done to you." The words struck deeper than thunder. The girls didn't wait. They ran, faster than before, not looking back again. Behind them, the river slowly closed. The storm faded, the sky cleared, and the night returned to silence. And that was only the beginning. Thank you for watching part 1. But what's coming next is something this village will never survive. In part 2, the queen returns for revenge, not just for what was taken, but for the betrayal that followed. And this time, she's not coming alone. You don't want to miss it. If this story moved you, like, share, and drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Your support truly means everything and keeps these stories alive. Part 2 is coming. Stay ready.